Hey guys, welcome to a new episode. In the last episode, we were stuck with a seized engine and the most theft-proof exhaust manifold I have ever encountered. Seriously, I can't get the thing off. Um, in this episode, we're going to continue with motor teardown. We're going to continue analyzing what our problem might be, although we know what our problem probably already is. So today I've gone ahead and I've stripped off some of the parts that I know we're probably going to replace, while the motor is out, like the water pump. Okay, that's pretty much it. On older engines like these, things are such a pain in the ass to take off. Everything is rusted, everything is seized. You really just need to spend some time just getting everything off and dealing with broken bolts and broken studs and stripped nuts. The struggle is very real, and a lot of people out there might know what I'm talking about. So here's the engine with the water pump and alternator taken off. Before we can strip the heads, we have to remove the intake manifold and do something about those exhaust headers. The one on the left was actually okay, surprisingly. But we're definitely going to have to do something about the one on the right. So let's get on with it then. So there's a few things in life you never really want to see. Your report card after a bad semester, your bank balance after fun night out, your Uncle Fred's dance moves at your cousin's wedding, and oil and water in your intakes. Okay, so this is what I was talking about milkshake, or basically oil and coolant in the intake ports. Now, whilst that might be extremely concerning, we're still going to look on the bright side because hopefully it just means that the head is cracked. Now, if the head is cracked, there are a number of VW specialists around in my area that have been welding these heads for ages. So it's a common problem for these heads to crack. Hopefully it is the head as opposed to the water jacket. Now, if it's the water jacket and the barrel and piston and all of that crap, it's part of the crankcase. And if it's part of the crankcase, I really don't want to have to go through all of that admin. So I'm hoping it's just the head. Well, now that we've seen what we've seen, and what we've seen can't be unseen, we're gonna have to live with it. It does hint that we probably have a cracked head. Only slightly fazed by this, I think I'm gonna go ahead and console myself by making some bright sparks. So I was originally planning to do the cut over here, where the existing weld was, and then to just refabricate this piece. However, if we make a cut here on this vertical part, there's a good chance we could probably get a 180-degree mandrel bend over here, extend it here, and then have enough clearance in the future for the bolt over there. So I think that's what we're going to do. So we've got the offending piece over here, and you can see that whoever did this definitely did an amazing job of porting that header. Like, that's exactly what you want to do for maximum performance and for top horsepower. Okay, jokes aside, like I said, we were going to cut it over here, so I cut and lift that back a bit. And then we ended up doing that cut over there, just so you see how it's right before that necking area? So if we do want to go back, it's a somewhat straight cut. Yeah, so when everything opens again, in the new year, we're going to get this flange. We're going to get it, like, measured up and made at a machine shop or an engineering shop. I can probably go get 180 mandrel bend and, like, an extra little section of pipe from an exhaust shop. And yeah, so we'll be able to remake the headers. So the first step is to take off the rocker cover and marvoid all of the sludge you're going to find. Next, it's a good idea to keep a little tray or lunchbox to keep all your parts from getting lost. A spare bit of styrofoam may also help to keep the push rods from getting lost and to keep them in the correct order. Consult your manual for the proper loosening sequence. If you don't have a manual, loosen the bolts in a diagonal cross pattern, backing them off about half a turn each. Finally, with a bit of persuasion, the head can be taken off. Okay, so a little bit of forensic analysis here, and things start to get weird. When I started taking this head off, I initially I loosened this bolt and then that bolt just to crack, just to see if they'd come loose. Realized I needed to follow the pattern in the book, so I started following the cross pattern starting over here. When I went around and finally got to this stud, this one was already broken off. Okay, so that was weird. Continued with the pattern, got to this one and took just a tiny little twist to break that one off over there. However, if we look at the actual bolts themselves and the broken off pieces of stud, we can see that they've already had time to corrode. So those were those two lower studs over here closest to the bottom. This is the head and those two bolt holes, and this piston had quite a bit of sludge in it, which means that like little gap over there that they allowed the sludge into this piston. This piston was actually fine and only had lubricating oil from our early attempts to break it free. So that is a bit weird. It certainly doesn't narrow down our problems, it just kind of mystifies the whole problem a lot more. We might be in for some deep trouble, we don't know yet. Only thing to do is to carry on having a look. So before we take apart the left set of headers, I've been meaning to try an experiment for a while, and that is to use caustic soda to clean engine parts. The most common example that most people have is a drain cleaner. And when you're using things like caustic soda, you should always wear safety glasses and your gloves, of course. So my instructions recommend that about 5 tablespoons be used for every liter of water. So we've got 2 liters, we're going to need 10 tablespoons. I don't think I have that much, so we're just going to let it soak for longer. Now the thing with caustic soda is that it's highly alkaline, and highly alkaline substances tend to corrode aluminium, which is quite surprising for most because normally people think that aluminium can't be corroded by hardly anything. So a good way to check whether something is aluminium or not is to use a simple magnet. Because aluminium is non-ferrous, magnets won't stick to it. However, if we go over to the tappets over here, that sticks. So we can see that it's going to be safe to use the caustic soda on our internal and our steel engine parts, but not on the actual engine casing itself. And we're back. So I've left this rocker shaft soaking for about like 30 minutes. And it actually turned out okay. You can actually see all the dirt sitting there in the water. That's pretty manky. So rocker shaft relatively clean, scrubbed it off with like a toothbrush. Now this has only been soaking for a couple minutes while I was doing everything else. And it's actually cleaned it up pretty well. Like this is cast and that's like machined. But yeah, it's gotten most of the gunk out. Like some of that still needs to be rubbed away. However, I do only recommend caustic soda on external engine parts. Like if you've got suspension A-arms that need to be cleaned, or really grotty external or like cast iron parts. I think this will work fine on those. Or like, you know, parts that you can wash off. Parts that don't have little internal crevices because the water will still get in there and cause corrosion. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to soak this in some penetrating oil because I don't want this to corrode while there's still water in those crevices. Thinking back, it would have probably been a better idea to clean internal engine parts in something like paraffin or even just gasoline or diesel even, because petrol-based cleaners, petroleum-based products, you know, they leave a coating of oil, like a film of oil, that'll help fight corrosion. So, internal parts, gas-based, petroleum-based products, probably the best, so yeah. Okay, so while I was out today, I got some much needed supplies. I got us some more degreaser, which has rust preventative abilities, or so it says, unlike our caustic soda. I got us some penetrating oil, got 2 different types, just in case. I got us some circlips for another project I'm working on, and I got us this, an engine crane. Because I realized pretty much one of the reasons I was struggling was because I did not have the right tool for the job, which I really didn't. And now, a normal engine I probably would have been able to get away with, you know, just without an engine stand. But because this is a boxer and because I need to get penetrating oil into the cylinders, and those cylinders aren't, like, you know, horizontal, I'm going to need a way to rotate the engine 90 degrees. And so here it is. Let's see what we got here. Unboxing videos, yay! One of the things I hate most on YouTube, but here it goes. Let's not break this little blade, because it is by no means industrial. Yeah. It's actually a little cool. It's like a little right angle tool with a blade in it. It would just be great if it was more useful as a blade. Cool. Here it is. It's just like Lego. So here are all the parts laid out alongside a selection of the spanners you're going to need. Looking at the thing, it probably wouldn't be hard to make it yourself at home. Here it is with all the parts put together. And here's the engine on the stand. Much better. Now, seeing as all I needed to do was wait, I was going to end the episode here, but then I got to thinking. Now, on my engine, the water pump, seen here, pumps coolant directly into the oil cooler, seen here. Now, on some modern VWs, this oil cooler has been known to fail, so I decided to test mine using a bucket and an air compressor. However, it passed the test, which leaves us back at square one as to figuring out why we have coolant in the oil and waiting for the penetrating oil to soak in. So, in this episode, we tore down the heads, we broke some studs, we looked into an interesting new method to clean parts on the cheap, we got a new engine crate, so now we don't have to work on the floor anymore, and since all we have to do now is wait, I think we're gonna wrap up the episode here. But tune in next time when we continue the teardown of this motor and we try and find out what the heck is even wrong with it. Until then, thank you so much for watching. I'm Mark. That's me, out.